about another 30 seconds for everybody that we just admitted in a large group to come in and get settled. So welcome, and give us about 30 seconds to make sure that everybody is in, and we'll start right on time. Thank you so much for being here. No. Okay. I'm just going to check with my Deputy Chief of Staff. Is everybody in? Okay, wonderful. All right, everybody, good evening. And everyone, welcome to Mo Knows Taxes. I'm Mo Ivory, your proud Fulton County Commissioner from District 4, and I'm thrilled to have you join us tonight for this very important and informative conversation. Taxes can be complicated, but understanding them is essential, especially when it comes to your home and property. We also are at the height of tax season with the federal filing deadline approaching on April 1st. And tonight we're diving into key topics that directly impact you. Homestead exemptions, the effects of HB 581 on Fulton County homeowners, how commercial, and I know this is a hot topic, and private properties are assessed and appraised, as well as the fundamental differences between the tax commissioner and the tax assessor. To bring greetings, I'm so honored to be joined by my very special guest, our esteemed chairman of the Fulton County Board of Commissions, Chairman Rob Pitts.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ivy. It's my pleasure to be with you and to greet your citizens, who are my citizens as well. In your introductory remarks, you were correct. This can be a very confusing time of the year for our citizens, and as many times as I've gone through this, I still have questions myself. And I was fortunate that Council Member Mary Norwood and I met with Mr. Conley to sort of streamline a sort of a cheat sheet for our citizens to use. I'm sure that he will be talking about that tonight. You'll be talking about that, but just let me thank you for the great job that you're doing, the great work that you're doing. This is probably, this meeting coming up next week will be your, fifth or sixth meeting so far. But you're doing a great job, and I have great plans for you, and I know that your citizens, the people that you represent, are very excited about having you. This is the first time that I'm aware of that a commissioner from this district has had a virtual town hall meeting like this. So I know that Mo knows taxes, and those who are listening this evening and participating, they will understand taxes as well. So thank y'all for being here, and let's get to work.
Chairman, thank you so much for that, and we appreciate you joining us tonight. So to help us break down these critical issues, we have two incredible experts with us. We, of course, have our tax commissioner, Dr. Arthur Ferdinand, who has been our long-standing tax commissioner, and he is joining us tonight to answer all of your questions, as well as our chief appraiser, Roderick Conley. Dr. Arthur Ferdinand has served as the Fulton County Tax Commissioner since 1997, bringing a wealth of experience from his prior 25-year tenure at IBM, where he held the position of Director of New Account Development. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics with first-class honors and a PhD in Mathematical Physics from London University in England, with postdoctoral studies at Cornell University. Under his leadership, the tax collection rate improved from 90% to 99%, significantly enhancing the county's revenue stream. Thank you, Dr. Ferdinand, for your work. Chief Assessor Roderick, I'm going to come right back to you. Chief Assessor Roderick Conley serves as the Chief Appraiser for Fulton County, bringing over 2 decades of experience in property assessment and tax administration. Holding advanced designations from the International Association of Assessors Officers, Assessor Conley has a deep expertise in appraisal methodologies, tax policy, and property valuation. His leadership ensures accuracy and fairness in property assessments, directly impacting homeowners and taxpayers across the country. Thank you both for joining us this evening to share your insights and your expertise. Our goal tonight is very simple: to ensure you walk away informed, empowered, and equipped with the knowledge to navigate the property tax system with confidence. To ask questions, please type them in the chat. This format will be you put the questions that you want answered in the chat, and I will give them to both our tax commissioner and our chief appraiser. Thank you. My team and I will make sure to address them as they are added. So let's go ahead and get started with putting those questions in the chat. I'd like to start with the tax commissioner. Dr. Ferdinand, welcome. Can you please just talk a little bit about what you do on an everyday basis for Fulton County?
It's pretty simple. I think I collect taxes and I administer the motor vehicle system. So all the tags and the titles you get comes from the state through the tax commissioner. We also collect taxes on a daily basis, administer it and disperse it to about 40 different authorities, including 17 tax districts and CIDs, 11 CIDs. Tax Allocation District and 11 CIDs. On a daily basis, we make sure that we follow all the laws of Georgia. We listen to our citizens, and particularly those who have needs. And very often during the tax season, especially at the beginning of the tax season, seniors have needs. So we make sure that we take care of those before we do anything that's difficult. And so that's basically it. We make sure that we communicate and keep in close touch with our brothers, the chief appraiser and his team, because many of the issues originate there. People want to know, understand what their exemptions are, how they're calculated, whether it's there or not, and things like that nature. And so on a daily basis, we make sure that we serve the citizens and listen to them and make sure that the governments get what they budgeted for.
Thank you for that. I want to go next to our chief assessor, Roderick Conley, so that you can give us just a very simple explanation of what your duties are day to day.
Good evening, all. My name is Roderick Conley. I do serve as the chief appraiser for Fulton County Board of Assessors Office. I will start with our motto: we build on a foundation of value, service, and trust. Now, as it relates to the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Assessors, we do have a 5-member board that has been appointed by the Board of Commissioners. They're responsible through the work of staff to identify and appraise all the taxable property throughout this great county of Fulton. They are also responsible for setting policies and procedures throughout the office, and the appointment of my role, the chief appraiser, which oversees the day-to-day operations of the office. But I will end with our priority. Our priority is the service to you guys, the taxpayers of Fulton County.
Wonderful. I know that there is the April 1st homestead exemption deadline coming up. Can one of you speak to exactly what a homestead exemption is and how a person goes about getting that?
Absolutely. I did bring my resident expert with me today. Ms. Brooks serves as the manager for the homestead division. So it would probably be most appropriate that she responds to that question.
Great.
Ms. Brooks? Can you unmute Ms. Brooks?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. We will get her unmuted. What's her first name, please?
Florence Brooks.
Florence Brooks. All right, Ms. Brooks, you are unmuted.
Good evening. Again, my name is Florence Brooks. I'm the manager of a homestead exemption. And a homestead exemption is a deduction you receive for owning and occupying the property. The deadline for homestead exemption is April 1st. And we have 3 ways of applying for homestead exemption. You can do it online on our website at www.fultonassessor.org. Or you can walk into one of our locations. We have 6 locations. We have one at 5600 Stonewall Tail Road, 2814 Greenbrier Parkway, 141 Prior Street in the Government Building, 235 Peachtree Street, and we have one at 11575 Maxwell Road in Alpharetta, and 7741 Roswell Road in Sandy Springs. You can apply for homestead all year. You've seen that we have it online. And I can give you the information we need as far as applying for the homestead exemption, which is you need a Georgia driver's license. If you own any automobiles, vehicle registrations. And we have several different exemptions. Exemptions for seniors, 62 or older, 65 or older, and 70 is the last exemption. We have the basic exemption that anyone who owns and occupies the property can apply for.
Wonderful. And that website is Fulton Assessor.
It's www.fultonassessor, no S, assessor.org.
Wonderful. And we'll put that in the chat for everybody to have that. I'm glad that you talked about the senior exemptions, because one question that we have right at the top is a question from a senior that said, I filed a homestead exemption using the 65 plus discount, but her taxes were raised by $2,000. She said the value of her home has not changed since 2023. What is that? Why were the taxes raised?
Well, that's something I have to look at. I couldn't tell you ahead of, from the top of my head what
Okay.
and why it's raised up. But we could look at that. You can give her my number,
Okay.
which is 404-612-9184. And I'll be glad to answer any question concerning that.
So I'm glad that you said that you wouldn't be able to just know that off the top by an example without a property address, because everybody's taxes are different, correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
And one exemption that somebody may have needs to be looked into as to why there was perhaps a change.
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
I said when somebody does see a change, it means that it's specific to their property address, and they would need to come and find out on a case-by-case basis why that change happened.
Yes.
Okay, and what is the best method for them figuring out what happened? Is it to come to the government center at 141 Prior? Is it to go to the website, or is it to call you?
I think the best is to call. Give a call.
Okay, great. So now everybody has Miss Florence Brooks' phone number in the chat, and she is saying that the answer to that question is to give her a call. So I would hope that you would go ahead and do that. Great. While we're talking about homestead exemptions, I just wanted to touch very quickly on HB 581, which was passed by the Georgia legislature in March 2024 and signed by Governor Kemp in April of the same year. It went into effect on January 1st of this year, 2025. Counties, cities, and school boards had the option to opt out by March 21st. Fulton County chose to opt in. What the main point that people need to understand about HB 581 is that it grants a statewide homestead exemption that limits the increases in the taxable value of homes to no more than the inflation rate that occurred over the prior years. Appraiser Conley or Dr. Ferdinand, would you like to expound on that at all relating to HB 581?
Let me go first, Roderick.
Yes, sir.
First of all, we have always had one of those caps in Fulton County since 2006. This new one gives us an option to choose the better of the two for the taxpayers. The Fulton one passed in 2006 limited the increase in the taxable value by 3% or the CPI, whichever is less. In this case, 581, the state sends us the inflation rate, whatever they call it, as their cap. And so we compare what the state's cap is to what the county has, and we give the taxpayer the best of the two. Roderick?
In procedurally, I think it would be important to note that you do not have to do anything. As the tax commissioner has suggested, we will calculate both options and you will receive the most beneficial to you.
Great. And will there be any difference that people will see on either their tax assessment or their tax collection bill?
Yes, there are going to be one major fundamental difference that you will see on your tax assessment. Your tax assessment should come out sometime in June. What you may traditionally be familiar with is that of the estimated taxes. The estimated taxes will no longer be reflected on the annual notice of assessment. It will be show a reflection of the estimated rollback rate.
Okay, and what is the estimated rollback rate?
It is a estimated rollback rate that was decided upon by the governing authority, the Board of Commissioners, and it is what the millage rate would be to collect the same amount of revenue.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. I have a question from a senior. To qualify as a senior at age 70, are state ID and car registration all that you need to qualify?
Now, if you're we have two different exemptions they could qualify for. One with just using your ID and your registration, so you can show your age. And the other is based on age and income. We have different income limits. And what we use your federal and state income tax. If you don't file income tax, we use your Social Security award information or any kind of pension information.
Wonderful. How can someone get their name corrected on their property taxes?
They would have to come from a deed.
Okay, so if their name is incorrect, they need to bring the deed down to have that name corrected.
Yes, if they have a deed that's filed in the Clerk of Superior Court and Deeds and Records, they can bring that deed to get their name corrected.
Okay, and you can go to Superior Court exactly across the street from 141 Prior at 136 and 136 Prior, and you can get your deed, and then you can walk back and have the name corrected.
If the deed is filed in the courthouse, it has to be filed first before you can get a copy.
Okay, so it's filed in the courthouse, you get the copy, you bring it back here to get the name corrected.
Yeah.
If it is not filed in the courthouse, then what is the next step?
You have to get it filed. You can't make the change without the deed being recorded.
Okay, wonderful. A question about a transfer on death deed. How do citizens file a transfer on death deed with the county so that the relative inheriting the property can continue to receive the homestead exemption without having to go through the probate process?
Okay, could you say that again, please?
Sure. How do citizens file a transfer on death deed with the county so that the relative inheriting the property can continue to receive the homestead exemption without having to go through the probate process?
That's the question I'm not sure about, Mr. Conley. Can you?
You talking about probation of a property?
Yeah, they're talking about, is there any way for them to bring a transfer on death deed to the county in order to transfer that property to the living relative without first having to go through probate?
So that is a good question. It is not something that we deal with very, very often. And so when we have questions, we traditionally reach out to our attorney representatives from the county. And so before I respond, I would definitely think it'd probably be best for us to get some guidance on that. So if there's someone that has that specific question, I would suggest that reach out to Ms. Brooks, and we can definitely look into it.
Okay, we'll mark that question as a follow-up, and we will get with you all to answer that question and to find out if we need to find anything out from the probate court, and then we'll return with an answer to that question on our website or on my social media. So we will look into that question, whoever asked that question, and get you a full, complete answer. And we will do that with any questions that we are not able to provide a full answer for tonight. We will leave here, we will research them, and then we will bring you the answer afterwards.
Commissioner,
Yes.
I got the impression that the question was also about how do they retain the exemption that the previous owner had.
Correct.
The answer to that is pretty straightforward. They have to qualify for that new exemption because they are the new owner. If it is the survivor of a marriage and it's a senior exemption, they could get that exemption reinstated with the Board of Assessors. There may be a little discontinuity when the assessors pick up that one of the relatives died, and that will trigger a change of ownership. But that exemption could be reinstated with the Board of Assessors when they're notified about it.
Okay, with the proper paperwork.
That's correct.
Okay. I believe that this is a question for our chief appraiser, and it will open up a very big issue that a lot of folks have about the assessment of residential versus commercial properties. But the question is the Fulton County Chief Appraiser required by law to use the fair market value of properties for residential and commercial properties in determining their assessed value?
The short answer is yes, but there's also a reality. There's a difference by definition of fair market value and assessed value. Fair market value, which we record both. Fair market value is what we feel the fair market value to be, what something will a knowledgeable buyer and seller will transact. However, the assessed value may have multiple impacts. It could be, for example, it could be a specialized property impacted by things such as development authority. But what you may, as taxpayers, be more commonly familiar with is that of the 299C provision, meaning if you appeal your assessment and it goes through the appeals process and there is a decision made at either level, in the past, you would receive 299C. Based on House Bill 581, that provision has changed just a little bit. You will only get a freeze for that year plus 2 additional years if there is a reduction.
Okay, so can you just, there's, let's just use, for example, 725 Ponce, which is a question in the chat, how it was assessed. And I think this is a bigger question about what happens with commercial properties. And you just mentioned about whether there was a development authority tax abatement. So if you could just generally talk about the difference between, and this is a conversation that you and I had a couple of weeks ago about how you assess and how you appraise residential properties, and just the process of appraising a residential property. If you see somebody applying for permits, or if you see construction going on, or if you see somebody doing something to their property, the use of drones and things like that, and then talk about how you do it with commercial properties and how you have to account for what the development authorities are doing. Can you just, in a brief sort of explanation of that?
Yeah, and if I may, I will ask our resident expert of residential division, Mr. Brian Gardner, to respond as it relates to residential, and I will follow with commercial.
Thank you.
You may have to unmute him, Mr. Brian Garner.
Brian Garner. Unmuting. Okay, he's unmuted. Hi, Brian.
He looks like he may be having some audio issues.
Okay. Is he unmuted? Okay.
He is unmuted. Look like he's having some audio
Okay,
issues.
so why don't you dive into the commercial end of it, and then we'll come back to him for residential.
So, from a commercial standpoint, all properties, they consider all three methods of evaluation as cost, market, and income. So, commercially, it's traditionally done by the income if there is income derived by the property. If not, it is traditionally done by the market's cost method of valuation. And so there is probably 60% of our properties that are commercial properties that are valued by income. But again, it is those unknowns, the 299C provision in the specialized assessments such as development authority that has significant impact on those assessments. Keep in mind, most of your commercial properties are represented by tax representatives traditionally. And so it is some that believe that because they're represented, they may find more success than a traditional taxpayer. And so they are traditionally impacted by the 299C provision.
And explain just what the 299C provision is.
Again, the 299C provision means if you file an appeal within a year and it is resolved, all right, at any level, the Board of Assessors level, Board of Equalization, Superior Court, you receive the 299C provision. What is new for this year, based on House Bill 581, you have to receive a reduction. Prior to this year, simply by filing and going through the process, you receive the 299C provision. But again, for this year, you have to receive a reduction.
And the 299C provision is, you're referring to the freeze on your taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
Means it's for the current year plus 2. I traditionally do not like to use the word freeze. Reason being, if there are modifications, improvements done to your property, that provision is removed.
Okay, so you could have gotten that provision, that 299C, but if after you got that there were improvements, it is removed.
Correct.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit more in depth as to what you mean by income of a commercial property? You said that it's assessed by its income. Can you just give us an example of what you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. So you may have purchased a property for $1 million and you're leasing it out. And so it's maybe driving more income than what you actually purchased for just a year or two ago. And so although you just purchased for $1 million and we're valuing it by the income approach, it may be assessed or valued higher than what you transacted it for.
Okay. So the example that somebody would like to understand is that 725 Ponce de Leon Avenue was assessed for $103 million, but sold for $300 million. Can you walk through how 725 Ponce was assessed and how the final figure was so dramatically lower than the value that it was sold for?
So I would definitely make some assumptions here. I do not have that card right here in front of me today.
Okay.
But what I can tell you, what I do know, that it is part of the a tax abatement through the Development Authority. And so you will see a difference in the assessment of those properties. And depending on the year when that abatement started, it may be more significant than others. I believe the first year it is a 50% abatement. So that is pretty significant as it relates to the assessed value.
So the assessed value is only on that 50% then?
It's 50% of the assessed value. So if the assessed value is $1 million, they'll be paying taxes based on $500,000.
Okay. And do you have any control over what a property sells for?
No, that is a relationship between the buyer and the seller.
Okay. And so your assessment is strictly for tax purposes and not for market value?
True, yes.
Okay. I
We
think
leverage the market value to try to determine what the market, and keep in mind, we use a full year of sales as compared to, let's say, a fair appraiser who may use recent sales within 2 or 3 months.
so. As it relates to commercial properties, can you just give us some? I want to have people walk away feeling like they can have certain facts to be true. If there is a property that is $100 million and it has an abatement from Invest Atlanta, whatever is the whatever the authority is that gave it that abatement, you are assessing it in that particular year at the percentage of the abatement.
Based on the agreement, you're correct.
Based on the agreement that put forth that abatement.
Correct.
And it will last for the term of that abatement, whether it be 10 years, 5 years, whatever is the term.
I believe so. They will spend the 10 years unless if there's a different agreement that either expires or extends it.
Okay. And if during that abatement period, someone sells that property, that commercial property, that price that it's sold for is not within your control.
No.
Okay.
That's the relationship between the buyer and the seller.
Okay. If somebody wanted to see your appraiser documents for any particular commercial property, where would they go?
Most of our documents are available on our website. If they cannot find it there, or they choose to come into the office, we can definitely provide it in that manner. Or you can simply just email us and we can send it to you electronically.
Okay. If there are citizens that want to advocate on the way commercial properties are being assessed or the actions of development authorities, where is it that they would go to do that?
They can start with our office. We have a divisional deputy. They can start with myself. If not, they can through me or attend one of our board of assessors meetings.
Okay. So a question is that the sentiment is that trophy properties are appraised at about 55% of what they sell for, but our homes come in at about 90% of a sale price. And what would be the reason that are all of the reasons that you stated, the different ways that commercial properties are treated or the special abatements that they get, is that the reason for that? What would be?
Well, it's no different than what we suggested with the home fair, right? Every situation is unique. You may have a property that's impacted by not only the development authority, but also was successful in an appeal and have subject to the 299C. And so it's just very difficult to just single out one particular property and try to identify why it is assessed the way it is. But yes, it is going to probably be those two factors that have the most significant impact.
Okay. Dr. Ferdinand, I wanted to come to you and ask this question. From a constituent, what is the current relationship between the tax digest and the millage rate? And what has the tax digest increased, and why has the tax digest increased and the millage rate decreased proportionately?
The tax digest is a compilation of all the values of all the properties in Fulton County. But the digest also includes additional information like all the exemptions, for example, the millage rates of all the different jurisdictions. So it's a much larger document than just values. One of the reasons why the millage rate would decrease is because of board action. The board decides what the millage rate is. The board could raise the millage rate, the board can decrease millage rate. So you are in a much better position to add to why would the millage rate go down. But at the same time, I would say that that there has been almost a one-to-one correspondence between the increase in collections and the decrease in the millage rate. And the philosophy is that if everybody paid their fair share, that means you get a bigger number of people paying, like a 99% or 100% collection rate. Then you don't have to have the millage rate high to compensate for the lack of revenue. And so there are all these factors. And then, of course, there's a political thing too. Commissioners don't like to raise millage rates. It's not good politics. And so millage rate would go down, sometimes unreasonably from some taxpayers' standpoint, because we have costs and we have services. But it's a very political thing, whether or not a millage rate goes up or goes down.
Right. And in Fulton County, you need 4 votes for anything to pass. And so that is why advocacy and conversation with your commissioners is so important at every district level, including the chair, for millage rates to stay at the level they are, to go down, or to go up when the county is looking to bring in greater revenue. It says if the assessed value is not shown on the assessment, how do we know how much the property assessment has increased by?
Can you ask that question one more time, Memphis?
Sure. If the assessed value is not shown on the assessment notice, how do we know how much the property has been increased by? How much the property assessment has been increased by?
Well, the assessed value shall show on the notice. And I believe you also have the prior years too, so you can do a comparison to gauge what it has increased by.
So the idea that the assessed value is not shown on the assessment notice is incorrect.
Correct.
Okay, so for everybody who asked a question as to the form, the assessed value is shown on the assessment form. Another question. If a home is within a trust, what documents are needed as part of that trust when applying for a homestead exemption?
Okay, you would need a copy of the trust. We usually ask for the first 10 pages because according to Georgia state, only the beneficiary of the trust can apply for the exemptions. So we have to see who the trust beneficiary is. You need your ID and your vehicle registration. If you're a senior, you'll need your income if you're going to apply for the income-based exemptions. If you just want the basic seniors exemption, you just need your ID, the trust, your vehicle registration.
Thank you for that. I'd like to ask a question about what a lot of people refer to as legacy properties. I'd like to let constituents know that inside of Fulton County, we refer to those as heired properties. Instead of legacy, because legacy does not have a defined definition, we refer to those as heired properties. So the question is, does a heired property homeowner have any benefits? How do you qualify for your property to become an heired property?
So there's no classification per se of heir property. And how in the Board of Assessors we traditionally define heir property is a house that has probably been in the family for a number of years. And it may go from a grandmother to a daughter and down to the granddaughter. And so that's how we define legacy properties.
Okay, thank you. A question about commercial properties, and what percentage of commercial properties have abatements? Do we have that figure?
I do not have that number, but I can definitely give it to you.
Okay, we will follow up with that question. Another question for our chief appraiser: is the assessor restricted from using sales or capital cost to determine fair market value?
No, those are the factors that we use. We use, our assessments are based on sales and any improvements that are made to the property.
Okay, excellent. Can you clarify, I think this is for Dr. Ferdinand, can you just clarify what the rollback rate is and how it will be reflected on the property, either collection or assessment notice?
The rollback rate is on the notice that the chief appraiser sends out prior to us calculating taxes. But the rollback rate is basically when the values of the properties increase. The intent here is to make sure that the government collects the same amount of money last year. And so the rollback rate is the rate that would allow the government to collect the same amount of money that they did the prior year.
Okay, and I think that we just set that rollback rate in the first March meeting, Dr. Ferdinand, is that correct?
You set it when Roderick sends out the notices. So you have to get the values and the increases in values and the growth before you can calculate that rollback rate. And the finance department calculates that rollback rate for you.
Okay, but we did have a discussion about that rollback rate that we needed to have prior to March.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe the
Well,
action.
that is
Go
you
ahead.
needed to have the
Estimated.
Estimated.
Rollback rate by March. Estimated. That replaced the estimated property tax on the notices.
And that estimated rollback rate was that 5.87?
5.88, I think it is.
5.88. Okay, so the estimated rollback rate currently that was set in the Board of Commissioners meeting in March was 5.
Don't hold me to the 5.88.
It's 87 or 88, I recall. Thank you for that. And we will definitely, yes, we will follow up with that exact, whether it was 87 or 88 in the follow-up. But thank you for that. So a question just following up to our discussion about aired properties. Someone wanted to know if there is a tax discount on aired properties.
There's no discount on aired properties. They are, I would say they're valued differently. Atlanta has become a popular city, not only to visitors, but also to builders. And so what we are seeing in some of our neighborhoods are the tearing down of older property, which may have been an aired property, and the construction of a newer property, which in past years may have been referred to as McMansions. Now, although they may be next door to each other, they are assessed differently because they will be assigned to taxable neighborhoods, meaning we want to compare a newly built home with another newly built home, and not a home that was built 50 or 60 years prior. And so those other legacy homes that are still existing in that taxable neighborhood, we will compare them and tax them similarly.
Okay. Dr. Ferdinand, when you and I talked a couple of weeks back, you said some very important things to me about seniors' homes, and you corrected some myths that I think are important to mention. We talked about tax liens on seniors' homes, and you said that you do not put tax liens on senior homes. Can you talk about that, or legacy properties?
Legacy property does not come into this. We're talking about seniors.
Okay.
Seniors are described by the Board of Assessors as somebody over 65, etc., etc. There are seniors who are also very wealthy. That doesn't count. They don't get the same exemption as the normal 65 years old. So when we send out tax bills, we know all the seniors because they have that exemption. When the tax bills go out, then after 30 days they become delinquent. So we know all those delinquent seniors, and they are given the advantage of contacting us to get a payment plan. We also don't transfer the liens of seniors. There's a lien, but those liens are held by us. Nobody could purchase those liens from us. And the seniors pay us whatever payment plan they agree to. And so we don't give seniors any kind of difficult situation. We ensure that those liens are with us at all times. Sometimes, in fact, in the past, we had an agreement with Citizen Trust Bank where the seniors could file what would be considered like a Christmas account, where they pay the taxes every month to Citizen Trust, just as though it was a mortgage payment. And at the end of when the taxes became due, then Citizen Trust would bring it to us. So we have several ways of helping seniors. But I would just say that if a senior is having difficulty paying taxes, they contact our office and we will work out a payment plan with us, but their liens would not be transferred.
Thank you for that clarity. And we often see a situation, I think it's important to raise a situation that happens, I'll say, I don't want to say quite often, but it did happen, and I have seen this already come through my office, where there was a senior who took over their parents' home, not through paperwork, but the parent passed away, and then the child, who is also a senior, has moved in, but did not come down to the tax commissioner's office to change that exemption into their name. And then the taxes become delinquent after 30 days, and then there is tax lien that happens because we become aware of that death. Can you explain that it is important for folks to have that paperwork of that transfer of that death so that we are dealing with the correct homeowner?
Yes, that is really a question for Ms. Brooks and the chief appraiser. Whenever there's a change on the property, that has to be with the chief appraiser's office. The fact that they got a property, we wouldn't know that unless there's a change of ownership, and that always goes through. Take care, Florence. That always has to be filed with chief appraiser before anything happens on our side.
Okay.
Yes, all the ownership changes are done in the tax assessor's office, via a deed, or again, if they go to probate court and they get a letter of administration, letter of testimony, they can file that letter of testimony in the courts, in the deeds and records, and bring that to our office, and they'll change the ownership for tax purposes only, and then they can apply for the exemption for them. But an exemption from your parents doesn't carry over to the children.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think we have another question that you may be able to answer. A constituent asked, my homestead exemption is HF01. My wife and I are both over 70. Can we file for a senior exemption for 2024? And is there an income cap or other restriction to receive that exemption?
Okay, yeah, they can file for 2025. The 2024 is gone. We have income limits. We have, if you're in Atlanta, we have a $25,000 income limit. We have a $10,000 income limit, a $40,000 income limit, a $39,000 income limit. And in Fulton County, we have a $30,000 income limit. So we have different income limits that you can come in and qualify for. We have one, I believe this year is $92,000. So we have different income limits that you can come in and qualify for the exemptions.
Okay, thank you for that. Someone
And
asked,
then we have the basic seniors exemption that's based on being 65 or 70 with just your ID and your registration.
okay, thank you so much. A constituent asks, how can we get a permanent freeze on our taxes as DeKalb County did?
That's something they'll have to put into law. That there's no permanent freeze on their taxes in Fulton County.
Okay. Another question is how that would have to be something that the Board of Commissioners or a law was passed to just freeze taxes. So that is something that have to be done through vote. So that's an advocacy issue, and that would require 4 votes at least at the Board of Commissioners or state law to change something.
That would be an exemption, and I think it would have to pass in the Georgia legislature and then go for a vote, a referendum, where all citizens vote for it. It's not something that the Board of Commissioners can do.
Thank you for that correction. Thank you. I think a question for exemptions for seniors over 75, I would just answer that question by saying there are senior exemptions, and to please go to fultonassessor.org, all of those resources that we have in the chat to find out how to go about applying for those exemptions. But there are for sure senior exemptions for over 75.
The last exemption for seniors is at age 70. So once you get the exemption at age 70, unless there's some changes in your income or your circumstances, that's the last exemption is at age 70.
Okay, so someone at 75 could not apply for an exemption.
They should already have the 70 exemption, and that's the last one.
Okay, so correction, that the last exemption is at 70. So what if they are 75 and they never applied for the 70 exemption?
Then they can come in and apply.
Okay, great. So if you don't already have the 70 exemption and you're 75, you can come in and apply for it.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that. This is for you, Chief Appraiser Conley. Can the appraiser give an example of when they use sales of commercial properties to determine the value of like commercial properties?
Well, it's no different than the residential, to where they are put in taxable neighborhoods. The only difference is it's going to be like uses, like hospitality would be compared to other hospitality. Restaurants would be compared to other restaurants in a geographical area. We understand location, and so there may be a different assessment or value placed on the locational area throughout the county.
Okay.
And so, go ahead.
No, you please.
And so we do leverage the sales transactions in order to ascertain, but again, the vast majority, about 6% of our commercial properties are valued by the income approach.
Income approach. Okay, thank you. I wanted to go back to Mr. Gardner, who now is able to join us to talk about residential.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for having us. When it comes to residential property, largely the valuation process is based on the sales comparison approach and the theory of substitution. What are properties similar to the subject selling for in the area? We use the previous calendar year sales. January 1st to December 31st of one year sets the value for the next year. And if somebody disagrees with the value, they do have the opportunity to appeal the value that has been established by the Board of Assessors. Not the change in value, not what the county is using the taxes for, but the value itself.
Okay, and can you just speak briefly to the techniques that you are using to assess values on the residential side?
Yes, and thank you for that question. We use the sales comparison approach. We look at the properties that have sold and come up with an estimate for everything else. So when we look at a neighborhood, we gather all the properties that have sold, we analyze them for validity, meaning atypical or invalid transactions are removed, and once we see what we have left over, we try to find our central tendency, our median sale, and then we try to get that median sale up to a predetermined level of assessment. And whatever it takes to get that median sale is applied across the board. That is the essence of mass appraisal.
Okay, and we've heard about looking at permits, we've heard about drones. Can you just give us any facts about, is that something that's employed in figuring out values?
Yes, it is. If a property has been updated by a permit or been updated without a permit and we find out about it, we will change our information and add that to that particular property. And what that allows for is a more consistent and a more accurate valuation of everything else.
And how would you find out about that?
Well, permits are typically filed by the person who's doing the work or the contractor, and we would get a copy of that if the municipalities are forthright in sharing that with us. And for the people who do serious work without taking a permit, we go to the field. We might go to a property and see that the property next to it has a dumpster in the driveway. We will look to see what happened. So we will gather the information best as we can.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I
Thank
think,
you.
yes, I think people wanted to understand that. And is it true that you are employing drone technology to monitor any of these, rehabbing activities or building activities?
I would not say drone technology, but we do have an aerial photography service.
Okay.
So we can capture new construction, changes to existing properties from that aerial photography service.
Okay,
Photometry.
awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to just ask our Chief Appraiser Conley one question about 299C. Was 2024 the last year for 299C?
No, 299C is still being employed. However, it will be restricted to only those properties that receive a reduction.
Right. So that basically means that in the past, you could have filed an appeal, you would have gone through a process, and you would have received that, I know you hate the word freeze, but you might have received that. Now it will only happen if you receive a reduction in the value.
Correct.
Okay, and that reduction can be as little as $1. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. We only have 3 minutes left. And I know that we still have a lot of questions in the hopper, and with wanting to respect everybody's time, including all of our speakers, I wanted to say that we will take all of the questions that remain, including any of the ones that we needed to follow up on, and we will provide answers, again, either on my website, through our upcoming newsletter, and of course on my social media. And you can find me on Instagram at the Mo Ivory, which is THE, my name, MOIVORY. And also the same thing on Facebook. And also you can visit my office. You can also find me on email, and all of my information is in the chat. I'd like to thank our guests tonight, everybody who joined us, our Commissioner Dr. Ferdinand, our Chief Appraiser, Roderick Conley, everyone who supported them from their offices. I thank you so much for joining. It was an extra treat to have you on to provide extra information, so I really do appreciate that. As we wrap up tonight's Mo Knows Taxes Town Hall, I want to extend my deepest gratitude for all of you, the constituents who joined the conversation tonight. This is just the first of many virtual town halls that we're going to have on many subjects. And I'm sure that we will have more on taxes as well, because I see your follow-up questions and I know that you want to have them answered. So we will immediately provide answers to those, but we'll give an opportunity and a forum for us to do this again. Thank you again to my speakers, and I hope that we have provided clarity a little bit. Some helpful information about the homestead exemptions, the impact of HB 581, how commercial, residential, and commercial properties are appraised, and the important role of our tax commissioner and our tax assessor. Please remember, knowledge is power. It's what I want to provide, and the more informed we are, the better decisions we can make for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities. Before we close, I'd like to remind you that the federal tax filing deadline, of course, is April 1st, as well as the homestead exemption deadline here in Fulton County. Let's continue these conversations and work together. That's what I'm here for a stronger and more informed Fulton County, and especially a more informed District 4. So please always feel free to contact me on behalf of my office, and the 90 days that we've been in office, we hope to be able to continue to provide information, which is my promise to you. So thank you so much. If you have any comments or you need to reach me, my information is in the chat. And have a wonderful evening, everybody, and I'll see you on the next virtual town hall. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.